You're throwing out words that I love. Persuasion, science. We love science. We love it. We love experimenting. We love it. We love testing things.
Brilliant. So hopefully you've all heard of finding number one, the paradox of choice. Is this familiar to you, James?
That is absolutely not familiar with me, I'm ashamed to say.
Oh, well, this is brilliant. That means then maybe I've got more things that I can share with you. So this was the initially very surprising finding this was from behavioral economists particularly, that consumers don't necessarily want more choice. Even though traditional economists believe that more choice is better and always better, because if you've got more choice, you're more likely to find the perfect fit for you, turns out that we consumers can be paralyzed by too much choice, and we end up making no decision at all. So that's the paradox of choice. And the key finding after lots of experimentation is that customers are more likely to purchase based on 6 options than 20 options. So 6 seems to be about the maximum number that we can tolerate. And this holds true in business too. So while it's important to have the right package for each type of customer, you don't necessarily need an endless array of choices. And certainly what we find in the SaaS business is like 3, 4, 5, often 3. James, you know, we've talked about good, better, best. 3. It's 3.
I love the package of 3.
Yeah, it's so useful. So if the paradox of choice is new to you today, one of the things you can do is you can check that your sales material doesn't require your customer to make too many choices. Give them a limited range to choose from. Customers are much happier believing that they've made a good decision. And one of the ways they'll decide whether they've made a good decision is to work out whether it was an easy decision. So easy decisions are subconsciously good decisions. Now, if you absolutely must have more options, and I know sometimes people have products that are complicated and you do need to have more options, it's better to sequence decisions rather than putting them all in front at the same time. So you could do, out of these 3 options, pick one of them. And then once they've picked one, you go, okay, now I have one follow-up question. Would you like it with premium support or would you like the cheapskate option, right? And that's a way of presenting 6 options as 2 choices, 1 of 3 choices, 1 of 2 choices. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, like, people have been part of our world for a while now, are listening to this going, this science totally underpins everything that we've been learning in the B2B school. We talk about product ecosystems, which is introducing choices incrementally. We talk about making sure that you don't have, well, you know, we recommend 3 choices rather than 6. It's interesting that you've put a limit on it. When it comes to testimonials, we have ideas about what's going to work. But at the end of the day, a confused mind always says no. And that's what Jo is telling us here, that sharing the science that underpins it. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's a lovely summary. A confused mind always says no. So insight number 2 from us behavioral scientists is anchoring and framing effects. I've got 2 little cartoons for you here because they make me giggle. So the anchoring effect shows that humans are not rational, logical computers that make absolute judgments. Instead, we very sensibly take cognitive shortcuts and make value judgments based on comparisons. So in this little cartoon, there's a mug for $300 or a mug which was $1,000 and is now $300. And you're definitely going to go for that more expensive mug because you're getting more value for that. That's a logical, sensible choice. So that's called the anchoring effect. The framing effect is similar but different. The same information can be presented in different ways. So here we've got a nice little cartoon, 20% fat. No. 80% fat free. Yum. I'm going to go for that. Another nice example is that I might happily sign a medical form with a 90% chance of success, but I may hesitate if you say it's got a 10% chance of error. So logically, these are exactly the same statement, but the framing of it, the framing of making it more positive has a difference on the mind, and it's just easier and processed. So where do we commonly see this in business? As we saw before, consumers like some choice, but you can frame this choice so that one is very obviously wrong and between the other 2, one is very obviously better. This is a very common technique used by real estate agents. If you're going on a set of viewings, they might take you to 3 properties one outside your price range. That's there for you to discount easily, and you're confident in that decision. And then there'll be two that are within your price range, one with really nice decor and the other one a little bit shabby. So now you've got to make really easy decision to make that you're going to go for the better one of the two. And I think, as I said earlier, humans will conflate ease of the decision with confidence in the decision. So that makes you make the decision faster and pushes you out of your tendency to go, oh, I'm not yet sure, I'm not yet willing to take the plunge.
In our world, we have a training program called the Pointy End, and we've got a lot of students that go through that program. They chunk down what it is that they're doing, they package it up into sets, and then they introduce it to clients as one of 3 sets. One of those clients is up here. It's very expensive. We call that the premium. One of them is down there. We call that the Patsy. And then in the middle, we have the preferred, which is almost identical in price to the Patsy, but with a lot more features. It's just amazing to watch our clients step out of sometimes presenting to a client for the first time and say that they went for the middle option. And we're like, what a surprise. And then occasionally they turn around probably about 5 to 10% and say, I want the really expensive option, because there's also a type of person that always wants the most expensive.
Yeah. And isn't that great for a business that somebody turns up and says, yes, I want the premium product. Just give me the premium product. And you get that often from really big companies where I think it's IBM, isn't it? Nobody was ever fired for choosing IBM. They know if they go for the most expensive product, they're not going to be fired for it.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to deliver what they need.
But I love this as well too, because the anchoring is an example of anchoring just there. The framing effect, look at your competitors, work out why everybody loves your competitor, and then turn that into a negative that you can use. So for example, if everyone else is going with a consultant and you're a DIY service, you can say, consultants are more expensive, we're less. Or you become beholden to a consultant. With us, we're going to give you autonomy and freedom. So it could be, rather than, hey, you have to do all the work, it's you get autonomy and freedom. And you can balance those things off against each other. And that's framing. Love it.
Yeah. And in that situation, you definitely don't want to sort of hand over your power to somebody else, do you? You want to keep those skills in-house.
Absolutely, if that's the way that you're doing it.
If that's the way that you do it, exactly.
If you're a consultant, you're gonna frame it another way. We can do it for you.
We can do it for you.
We don't have to worry about
pain away. All of that pain. Yeah, exactly. And then the third example that has come from behavioral economics is about social influence. Social influence is so important, and whole businesses that didn't exist when I was a teenager now exist because social influence is so important. Now, what the psychology tells us is that we're influenced by reviews and testimonials because we want to be part of the in-group. At a subconscious level, our brains believe we'll be an outcast if we disagree with the group. And social exclusion is one of the most painful experiences for a human. Anybody listening today who remembers those days at school where maybe your best friend wasn't there that day and you suddenly were like, oh gosh, or you've had to go to a party before your friends arrive and you're like, oh no, I don't want to be in the room first when I don't have any friends. Like, as teenagers, it's intolerable. But even as adults, social deprivation is really painful. It's not just unpleasant, it's painful. Now, it's important to remember that both positive and negative social information have more impact than they should. So the way we think about this in terms of psychology is that social information is amplified, both good and bad. So a positive review, when people read that, they think more of your product than they should. But with a negative review, they think less of your product than they should. So we amplify our processing of social information. Wow. Now, where do we commonly see social influence being used by businesses? We see testimonials and case studies are how businesses apply this finding from social psychology. We talk about social proof. And also with those annoying pop-ups that pop up in the middle of a shop when somebody's buying something and says, so-and-so's just bought this, so-and-so's just bought this, so-and-so's just bought this. Now, there are some people who have the very opposite feeling about social proof. I remember I was working in an art gallery. We were selling art and there was this amazing sculpture, amazing sculpture. It was the premium product, right? It was about 10 times the price of anything in the gallery. and it was 1 of 6. And I was chatting to the guy, I was like, oh, so like he'd been circling it for a while. And he's like, it's really lovely, it's really nice, but I don't buy 1 of 6s. I want 1 of 1. But can I buy all 6 and then destroy the other 5?
Oh my goodness.
Just like, I'm going to have to go back and talk to the artist about that. Anyway, so social proof. What could you do in your business about this today? So what I said at the beginning is really important. We're influenced by reviews and testimonials because we want to be part of the in-group. And we want to be a part of an in-group that we really identify with. So a review or a testimonial is fine. They're nice, they're positive. But if that person reminds me of me, it's going to have far more impact. So if you have testimonials and case studies for each of your like if you sell different types of business or you sell different types of products, you want to develop specific testimonials and case studies for each specific type of client that you serve, right? So for real estate, if you were selling to a real estate business, you'd want specific case studies for them, and you'd want specific ones for managers, whereas the guys on the street, different ones. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we teach, and it's a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people say the opposite of this, but we teach have 1 testimonial, have 5, or 5 or more, 1 or 5 or more. And the reason is if you have 1, it has to be specifically tailored to the person and they read it and they go, wow. Otherwise, there is that moment where someone can read it and go, that person is not identical to me. Therefore, what you're saying is not applicable to me. And it has the reverse effect. If you've got 5 or more, they don't read them. They just have a look at all these testimonials. And there is this, and I guess this is a form of social proof. They look at all these other ones and go, a lot of other people think that they're pretty good. So I'm not even going to read them. I'm just going to scan them and it's going to have a similar impact on me. But 3 is a bad one. 3 is a bad number because they'll read, and 2 is a bad number, and 4 is a bad number because they'll read all 3, or they might read all 4. And of those 4, if one of them is not quite right, as you said, it's amplified. And they go, oh, well, none of them are right because that one wasn't right. Yeah. And the other one are pretty right, but that one's not right. So they're not all right.
Yeah. Well, this probably feeds into another finding from psychologists around memory, and this is a trick that magicians exploit as well. So if a magician is running a trick on you, they'll do the same trick, and you'll think it's the same trick, but they'll use the mechanism. They'll do the mechanism differently 2 different times. Actually, how they make the trick work. But then when you go away and you think about it again, you'll go, oh, no, and somebody goes, well, maybe they did this. And you're like, no, he can't have done that because he did this other thing. And your memory for it goes wrong. You start conflating which bit of the magic trick happened with which time they went through. So you can't piece it back together to think about it clearly. So when you've got 5 testimonials, you're doing the same thing. You're giving somebody too much that they can remember. So they read the different testimonials, and then out of those pieces, they're cobbling together the perfect testimonial for them.
There you go. Once again, that's how it works. We do things, we don't always know how it works, but that's how it works.
That's how it works. Great. So back to behavioral market research. That was a little history trip into academic behavioral economics and how that's already influenced the art of marketing and sales. But now we should go back to what I'm meant to be talking to about today, which is behavioral market research. So what's the big problem academics are trying to solve? So I love this quote by David Ogilvy. People don't think how they feel. They don't say what they think, and they don't do what they say.